Hi, fellow Django developers. Ezekiel here from Django.com, where we discuss interesting Django topics that helps you grow, improve as a Django developer. If that sounds interesting, like, subscribe, share this video with anyone if you find this video important. Let's get into it. So today, guys, we are going to be looking at permissions, right? How to with this should be the 17th video in our Django Absolute Beginner playlist, and in the last 3 videos we have been looking at authentication in Django, right? So in this tutorial we said we are going to be looking at permissions, right? So we are going to be making sure, if you have been following, you know that we have been developing a web application here that lists books, right? So from the last tutorial up to this point, when we list the books, we are getting all the books in our database, right? So what we said is that we want to make sure that the books that should be gotten for a particular logged in user should be the books that are created by that particular user, right? So that's what we are trying to do here. We are trying to make sure that when we create a book, we assign the right user, the authenticated user, as the creator of that book. And when we retrieve books from the database, we make sure that a user, an authenticated user, is able to see books that are only his, right? So that other users cannot view other users' books, right? Of course, you can still do that. Maybe in the index page or the home page, you can implement that, like make everybody view all the books in the database and maybe implement pagination and stuff like that, right? But for here, in the dashboard, we want only the authenticated user to be able to view his books. So first things first, to be able to make sure that a particular user is able to view his books, you should be able to make sure that there should be a way for you to identify the user that created the book, right? If that makes sense, right? So to do that, we make sure that while creating a particular book, we assign a particular user as that's the authenticated user who created that book as the owner of that book, right? So from there, we can then go to retrieve and make sure that we retrieve books made from a person. So if we go to our models.py file, if we go to our models.py file in our books application, right? So if you don't know about models in Django, models and database, we discussed it in, let me say, the 6th to 8th video in this playlist. I'll leave a link to it in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, it should be popping out on your screen also, right? So in that video, that was where we created this model right here, and we made migrations, migrated to the database. That was also where we discussed what migrations are and what have you, right? So in this book, we have a field here, the name field, the name of the book, its description, its published, dates created, etc, right? So here also we want to also add the creator, right? We want to know the person that created the book. That's the user that created the book. Obviously it will be the authenticated user, right? So here will be the field. The field will be equal to models.foreign key, right? So this foreign key means that this field belongs to another database table, right? If you know about relationship in databases and SQL databases, that are structured query databases, you know about foreign keys, right? So this foreign key means that the value of this field here will be belonging to another table, right? So which table is that? The table will be the user table, right? The Django built-in user table, right? And in the Django awesome authentication framework, we have from Django.contrib, like always, .auth, right? And if you have been watching, if you have been following the trend, you notice that most of the things, the views, the decorators we have been importing from this framework, we have been importing them from this Django contrib.auth model, right? From this package, right? So if you want to import the views, you can do .views. If you want to import the decorators, you can do .decorators. But right now, what we want to import is the .models. The .models, we import the user model, right? So this user model will obviously be the value of this foreign key, right? So these models contain the models that are involved in Django authentication in Django, right? So this is like another database table, right? This is like another database table, and it comes built in with Django, right? Django comes ships it with itself, right? So this foreign key, the value here will be user, right? Again, we are trying to say that this foreign key will belong to another table, right? We are trying to say that this creator is from another table, and which table is that? It will be the user table, right? So that's why we say user here. Now secondly, we assign on delete value, and we say models dot cascade, right? So what does this mean? We are saying on delete, right? We are saying when we delete this user model, what do we want to happen to this book model, right? So when a user creates books, right, after a user creates book, and let me say the user destroys his or deletes his account from our application, right, what do we want to happen to the books, right? We are saying cascade here. Cascade simply means delete all the books created by this user, right? So if you think about it, after a user destroys his account, deletes his account from an application, it's only wise that we delete his books also, right, to save space and what have you, right? So we also have some, I think we have do nothing, if I'm right. So we have do nothing, which obviously means we shouldn't do anything. That's if a user gets deleted, if a user account gets deleted, don't do anything to his book. We don't want that. We want cascade, right? So delete every of his book. We don't want him no more since he does not want us. Okay, so we have created this user right here, right? We have made modification to this book, right? So right now, if we are creating a book, we will be able to know the user that owns that book, right? Then if we want to retrieve the books from the database, we should be able to query the database also and get the creator of that book, right, and return the books that belongs to a particular user, right? So the next thing would be, of course, whenever you make changes to your models in Django, whenever you want to make changes and you want to commit them to the database, always remember to run your make migrations and migrate, right? So before we do that, this is our database right here. This is our database here. This is that SQLite 3, right? So because we have changes, we already have this database set up and we have made migrations, so the database contains some things, right? So what we do is that we delete this, we delete the database, then we go to our migrations folder and we delete our migration, right? We delete our migrations because, so we delete the database, delete the migrations because we want to run another migration, right? So Django will pick up our migrations, right? So to start afresh, make our migration start afresh, we're making our database, right? So we say Python manage.py make migrations, right? So we say Python manage.py make migrations. It's created this create model book, right? So it has created this migration for us. So what we do is that we Python manage.py migrate, right, to commit this migration to the database. So it's making the migration, it's making all the migrations, obviously because we deleted the database, so it's starting afresh to make all the migrations over again, right? So all the migrations are committed to the database. This change we made to the model right here, has been committed to the database, right? So let's run our server, Python manage.py run server, right? And again, remember guys, if before your operating system, at least for Windows that I'm using, we allow you to delete this database file right here, this SQLite database file right here. Make sure to off your server, right, because it will give you error like file is still in use, something like that. So off your server, then try deleting this. Without offing your server, this will not be deleted, right? So if we go back to our application, if we come back here and refresh, so if we refresh, it's logging us out, right? Because the user that we created, when we deleted the database, the user also got deleted, right? So we'll have to create another user. So if we go to, I do not have an account, so username, let's say user1, right? Then password, let me put a password right here, then confirm the password, then we click on sign up, right? User created successfully, then we'll go to login. I think this should automatically redirect us to login, right? We'll change that letter here, say user1, if I'm right, user1 then password, right? So we say login, right? So we are able to log in. Obviously there is no book right now, that's why here is empty, right? So let's change that. Let's implement it in such a way that when there is no book right here, we say no book stored in the database. So if we go back to our templates, our book list, right? If we come here, if we come to the for loop where we are looking over the books, let me close this. If we come to the for loop where we're looking, so here is where we're looking over the books. This is the for loop right here, and this is where it ends, right? This is where it ends. So in Django there is another tag called empty, right? So inside the for loop we add this tag empty. So this tag will work when this database, when what we are looping over, this book array, this book query set is empty, right? That's where we have this, right? So it's something like an if else statement. If there are contents in my query set, output this content. If there are no contents in my query set, output this empty here, right? So we'll say bootstrap alert, let's say alert warning, right? Let's say you do not have any books created already, right? So if we go back, refresh, you see, so you do not have any book created already, right? Because it's empty, right? So let's go back to creating a book, right? So if you think about it, right now in our database, in our model, we have this creator, right? We have this creator, and in our views.py where we are saving the books, where we are having create book, right here, right? This create book function. In this create book function, let me close this. In this create book function, this is where we are creating the book, right? So right here, we in our forms, in these forms, this book form, we are outputting the name of the book and the description of the book. If you don't know about forms, Django Forms, I think you should go and look at the video we did. In that video, we talked about forms in Django and how to work with forms. I'll leave a link to it in the description. If you don't understand forms in Django, I don't think it's important. I don't think you understand this tutorial from here. So I think you should go and watch that video. It will pop up on your screen if you're on YouTube. So go and watch that video and let's continue, right? So here we are creating the book, right? We are creating the book right here. We are saving it to the database. Let me remove this. This should be later. So we are saving it to the database, right? So if you think about it, this request.form only contains content, that's it only contains the name of the book and the description of the book, right? So it doesn't have the creator of the book, right? So what we'll do now is that we say form.commit, right? Then form.save, then commit is equal to false, right? What are we trying to say here? We are saying we are creating this book, this form instance, passing in the request, or everything that are passed in from the HTML file, we'll pass it in here. Then we say form.is valid. If it's valid, we save it. But we are saying commit if is equal to false. Commit is equal to false means do not save to the database yet, right? So what we are trying to do is that we are trying to get the values that has been stored. That's why we are trying to get the values that are in this form, right? In this place right here, right? We are validating if what was inputted was correct, if it is valid enough. That's if we have the name and description, right? After that, we say save. But saving it right now, we don't want to save to the database. We just want to get an instance of it. Then if we get an instance of it, we say form.creator, right? Form.creator is equal to request.user, right? So what is request.user? Request.user is simply the logged in user, right? That's it. So what we're trying to say is that in this form, right? In this form right here, we are saying form is equal to form.save, but do not save to the database yet. That's what we are trying to say here. Then we say form.creator is equal to request.user, right? Request.user is simply the logged in user, right? So from here you can get request.user.his username, you can get request.user.his ID, dot his password, right, which will obviously not be a simple string because Python Django encrypts your passwords, right? So we have created the book here. We have gotten the book instance, checked if it's valid, gotten the instance again with the valid data. Then we have assigned the form.creator. After that, what do we want to do? We now want to save to the database, right? So we are now saving it to the database. Of course, the default value for the commit is true, right? Defaultly you save to the database, but right here we're saying commit is equal to false, which means we are not saving yet to the database. Then after assigning this, we now save to the database, right? So fingers crossed. Let me check my terminal. So our terminal is running. Close it back. So go here, let's refresh. So if we come here, what's the name of the book? We say the name of the book is Best Django. The description is Django, let's say always Django till I die. Why not? Right? So if you click on submit right here, fingers crossed, book was created, right? So the book has been created. Then if you come, let's come here, see whether this will open. Let me see if this will open. If I click on this, okay, it didn't open, right? So we have created the book, right? We have created the book. I was trying to open this. I don't know. I have a VS Studio extension that opens this for me, but sometimes it malfunctions. I have a VS Code extension. Should be the name of the extension should be SQLite Viewer, SQLite SQLite Viewer, right? Yes, it's installed, but I don't know why it's not working. It should be working, but either I wanted to use it to show you the database and show you the database entry, right? But it seems it's not working. But let's continue, right? But just believe in me that we are saving these books right now with the right user, with the logged in user, right? So, and here is where we list out the books, right? So here we are saying books.object.all, then we are changing the ordering, right? So we are changing the ordering right here. So here is where we want to change our query, right? So we want to filter this query and get only the books that are meant for the login user. So to do that, we say filter instead of all that we have here, which is all the database entries. We say dot filter, right? Filter where creator is equal to request the user, right? What are we trying to say? We're saying book the object the filter, right? So filter takes in a conditioner, right? So it will go through all the database entries, all the book entries in this instance, all the book entries in the database. It will filter them according to this conditioner, right? So what's the conditioner? It's saying the creator of the book should be equal to the request the user. Again, the request the user is the logged in user, right? So that's what we are trying to say here. So if we refresh again, you can see we are still seeing this book here. Because obviously this book was created by the currently logged in user, right? So but if we open an incognito window, let me open an incognito window, go back to localhost and create another user. Let's say user 2, right? Then let's say password. Let me enter another password. So let me sign up. User created successfully. Let's log in. And user, not in capitals, user 2, right? Then password. Right. So we log in. Right. So you can see right here that it's saying that you do not have a book. So for this user does not have a book created. It's saying you do not have a book. But if we go back to the other user that has a book, you can see that he has a book. So if this user to create a book, let's create a book for this user. The name of this book should be by another user. Let me just copy this and paste it in the description. By another user, submit. Right, so this user now has a book, and you can see that he only sees his own books, right? He only sees the book he created, right? So he's not able to see this book created by this user. this book created by this user is best Django, always Django till I die, while this one is by another user. If you should create another book again, list of create another book, right? And I messed it up. Let me write anything here and submit it again. You can see he's seen another book by another user, but he's not able to see this one best Django, right? Because he didn't create this book, right? So that's it, guys. That's permission. Obviously there are a lot of things there are a lot different ways you can implement, like everything in Django, like most things in Django, there are different ways for you to get a particular thing, right? So but this is how you can implement permission in your Django application. Just go to your model.py file, assign this foreign key. After assigning the foreign key, while creating a book, you assign the correct user, which is the logged in user. Now when you're getting all the books, you get the books that belong to that currently logged in user, right? So in the next tutorial, we'll be looking at the Django admin panel. Django admin panel is simply a panel that comes with Django. Django admin panel is actually very important. Like everything in Django is also awesome, right? Everything in Django is beautiful. That's why we love Django. That's why I love Django. That's why you love Django. That's why we all love Django, right? Django admin panel is just a panel where you can log in as a super user and view your database entries as a super user, view the database entries, modify them and things like that, right? So that's it for this video today. In the next video, we'll be looking at the Django admin panel. Like, subscribe, share this video with anyone if you find this video important. And before I conclude, guys, I've been omitting to say this, right? I've been forgetting to say this, right? So we have a GitHub repository, right? A GitHub repository for this project right here, right? So if you come to this, I'll leave a link to it in the description. You come here, the name of the repository should be Complete Django Beginner. So if you come to this repository here, right, you'll see that every topic we have been discussing in this tutorial has been committed, has been pushed to this repository with the right name, right? So if you want to look at URLs and views, right, you come here, click on this branch, right? If you come here, you drop this down, click on this branch. If you want to look at Django Forms, you click on this, you look at Django Forms. If you want to look at Django Messages, you click on this Django Messages. And what we looked at today is permissions, right? Django permissions. So I'll be pushing that code in the next, and immediately after this, after I post this video right here, right? So, and I'll leave a link to it in the description so that you can go and look at it. So take care of yourself. Have a nice day. Peace.